Pokercast. I am your host, A. Schwartz, alongside Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane and Mr. Terrence Chan. Hey, guys.
What's going on? No Ross for drop this week.
No.
I guess because we're doing the abbreviated show this week. We were thinking about doing the whole show, and then we've got somebody kind of important coming along, and we had to fit into his time schedule because he's such a big deal. You want to tell him about it?
Yeah, so let's talk about the format. So basically what we're doing, and Terrence, first of all, why don't we announce why we're doing this? First of all, you are engaged to fight again in Battlefield Fighting League, right?
I am, where people in Vancouver have seen me fight, I think, 3 times already in the Battlefield cage. I'll be fighting pro at 125 pounds. Trying not to say that while looking at the chicken that's right in front of me right now. But yeah, September the 17th. Now they just moved the date. September 17th, I will be engaging in fistic combat with another individual approximately my size. Come out to the Hard Rock Casino in Coquitlam, British Columbia, if you happen to be in the area. Or there may be some sort of pay-per-view thing. So I'll be training for that over the next 6 weeks. Try not to get hurt. I rolled my ankle a little bit yesterday, but nothing too big. And so you guys always come out to the fights. I always appreciate that. We got MJ coming out with what's that slogan of his? I don't remember what he says.
But
Hit him in the face!
MJ likes to say something during these things. Good. I'm looking forward to having you there.
they're so fun. It's going to be great. I'm not a MMA guy, but when my buddy's fighting, it's fun to go out. So basically, you're got a heavy training schedule. I want to ask you about your opponent, but first, just for our listeners, it's tough for you to get 4 hours put aside to do our show each week. So what we're going to do is we're going to do little hour segments here and there where we can fit it in. We're going to do an interview segment. We're going to do a In Case You Missed It segment and a mailbag Ross Report segment this week. So we'll hopefully
Don't
get 3
freak out.
podcasts.
Don't freak out when you look at this, when you download this thing and it says whatever, an hour. I think we've been doing this for about an hour and 10 minutes now. So it'll be about an hour and 10 minutes. Don't freak out. We didn't chop the show. We're going to put them out more frequently. We're going to, the advice when you get meals is just don't eat one big meal all at once. Portion your meals. Have your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. Reasonable size portions. We're bringing you reasonable, low-calorie versions of the Pokercast. So throughout the week, timed to your nutritional podcast intake.
Fantastic. We'll get to your assessment of your opponent in our second podcast when we get into the In Case You Missed It stuff. But for today, we are going to have Mr. Daniel Negreanu back on the show. We've recorded the interview, but we're just going to tee it up now. He is going to talk to us about the World Series of Poker. He's going to talk to us about a ton of different things going on in the poker world. Always fun to have Daniel back. There's some hockey at the end, so we saved it to the end, so people who aren't big hockey fans can kind of skip it if they want. But we'll go to that now. Well, here's our interview with Mr. Daniel Negreanu. Daniel, welcome back to the Pokercast, sir.
Thanks, gentlemen. Long time no chat.
Yeah, it's been a while. We're coming off a pretty interesting World Series of Poker, lots of storylines. First off, why don't we get your specific breakdown of how you did? Why don't you give us your impression of how your World Series went?
I think there's a couple ways you could look at it. I did have 9 cashes. I was in the top 20 for a while in Player of the Year. A lot of opportunities. Most importantly, my favorite event, the 50K, running deep in that, coming 12th and having a shot to win was really exciting. Overall, I would call it below average in terms of my expectation. Just the one final table, a 4th in Raz. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the process of playing. I played more hours than normal, showing up earlier. The structures were adjusted, so showing up late isn't as beneficial in terms of how much you give up. So I really enjoyed grinding every day. It was a lot of fun.
I want to ask you about that. Like, how do you keep it fun? People who listen to this show know that I get burned out personally really easy. You've been at this even longer than I have. You put in more hours than I do. What keeps it fun for you, or how do you keep it fun?
Well, I've always been self-motivated. I've always liked goal setting, and for example, I look at video games. I used to play video games when I was a kid, and you're playing a video game to get to level 5. Then you're trying to get to level 10 and beat the end boss, right? You're not getting any money for that, but it's really fun. And, I used to do I do fantasy sports and stuff where other people control whether I win or lose or whatever. So I look at it this way, kind of like I'm a video game. I'm playing myself, right? And I get to control it, and it's just really fun. And I create my own, because I don't play really for the money. That's not really my motivation. Sure. But I look at it just like I would a video game that I play, like Hearthstone. It's just I want to do really well. I look at the stats. I see where I'm at in the all-time money lead and different things. And it's just fun. I really just enjoy it. And I don't find it difficult to get motivated in my career or otherwise in other things that I choose to take on.
I think one thing that helps you probably is that you're not playing nine-handed no limit hold'em, and you're playing a lot of the events. I remember you tweeted right in the middle of the series you're going to play your first nine-handed no limit hold'em event, and you didn't seem super excited about it, but obviously when you're playing short-handed and you're playing mixed games, it's a lot more fun.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing. When at the World Series, it's the only opportunity I really get to play mixed games and tournaments, so I relish that. And then, occasionally, like I think you were mentioning one time I was playing in a shootout. It was 10-handed, no ante. And I think I tweeted something like 10-handed, no ante, no limit poker, like shoot me in the face, just shoot me in the face. It's, especially like, and I've listened to some of your podcasts. I mean, I've listened to the show a little bit, and I know that Terrence is in alignment with me about how damaging to the game it is when, you have people excessively tanking on a habitual basis. Sure. And just how it makes the experience less fun. And you just don't see as much of that in the mixed games. People don't usually take, 90 seconds to fold.
Do you think you're at a disadvantage, Daniel, in that you mentioned you're not playing for the money? Do you think that I don't know, takes the edge off a little bit, like other people out there who are playing for the money maybe have a bit more on the line? I don't know. I wonder if that's a disadvantage at all.
It's interesting you say that, because not too long ago, I don't remember exactly when, but Timex, everyone knows Michael McDonald, he tweeted something to the effect of, it's way more impressive that Daniel's able to win because he doesn't need the money. Whereas when you're young and this is your profession and you need to pay your bills, you're going to put in a lot of work because you have to, right? I do it willingly because I enjoy it, where there's not that added incentive of playing for life-changing money or supporting myself. So I think it can be, depending on who you are. I'm very, like I said, self-motivated, so I find ways to make it interesting for myself. I do have the added bonus of no financial pressure when I'm playing in the high rollers, but I'll tell you the truth. I've always been at my best when my back's against the wall, when my case bankroll, case $600 is on a 20-40 limit hold'em game, and I'm down to 115. I go, fuck, what do I do now? This is a true story. I'll tell it real quickly if you don't mind.
Sure.
In early days, I had $600, sat down to play 20-40, and I was down to like $92. And I was like, fuck this. They're not getting my case money. So I picked up the chips. I went to play 1 to 5 stud. Same day. It was like 9 a.m. I ran that 82 up into about $186. And I go, you know what? Let's go play 6-12 hold'em. I won about another 100. I got 286 now. Go play 10-20. I win $400. I got 686. Jump back right into the 20-40 game. It's about 6-7 p.m. by now. I win myself a good solid 1,400. I got 2,000 now. I'd not even played 40-80, but I said, screw it. Today's tournament day. Went to play 40-80. Turned that $82 into 4,500.
Nice.
That was
nice. The Sam Grizzle run-up.
Yeah, right? It was a blast. I enjoyed it.
The Archie Harris. Going back to tournament strategy a bit and having no financial pressure. So how do you play? I mean, how do you find that? Are you just playing for the bracelet or the win all the time? Like if you're short stacked on the bubble, obviously the correct thing to do is to play a lot tighter and fold, and if you're a big stack you can abuse. But are you constantly just saying like fuck it, I don't care about the money, like I'm just gonna put it in here as a favorite if I'm a favorite?
Well, I'm going to be completely honest. When I started in these tournaments, when I didn't have any money, my mentality was play to win. ICM calculations at that time were not something that was really like in the forefront. It was obvious and people knew, you want to squeak in the money. I never did that. When I first started my career, it led to a lot of 12th and 13th place finishes. But when I didn't come 12th or 13th, I was coming first. The first 8 final tables I made, I won all 8. I was 8-0. That's rare. It was limit hold'em too back in the day. A little bit different. But I don't factor in ICM calculation very much. I will say that it does affect me a little bit in terms of if I'm on the bubble and it's a close situation and there's a guy who's really short, I'm going to play accordingly. There is one bubble I do remember. I actually finished on the bubble. It was a 250K Aussie Millions high roller, and it was 4-handed. Phil Ivey, Gus Hansen, Patrick Antonius, and yours truly. and it was 4-handed, and it only paid 3 spots, and third was like 800,000. Okay, really stupid, like the dumbest bubble ever. It was like, so then and Gus is splashing around like a madman because he just can't help himself, So I'm thinking, okay, we'll just wait for Gus to go nuts, go broke. That didn't happen. It ended up being me, but it was one of the few times where I remember, consciously being a little more on the cautious side. But for example, the main event this year, ICM wise, the way that I was playing is a complete ICM disaster. Going up 2 spots, you go from 500,000, which is what I got, to $1 million. And I could have easily, with my chip stack, folded my way, just laid down to Joe McKeon, got on my knees, and just let him rape me blindly. But I wasn't going to let it happen. So,
right.
But clearly it was, ICM suicide, and I'm aware of that. I just really don't care.
One of the other ways people motivate themselves these days is bracelet bets. And we saw that this year with Jason Mercier. Had a huge bet. Whether he took the worst of it or not is a point of debate, but he 180 to 1 to win 3 bracelets. He almost pulled it off. Are you doing any of these? And what was your take on Jason's bet?
Well, I don't need bracelet bets to motivate me. I know a lot of other people do, like my friend Phil Ivey and others, to because financially they play the cash game, so it's like kind of also added incentive to play the tournaments because they really enjoy them. But it's also feels silly sometimes. Like, why am I playing in a tournament that pays 100,000 when I can win that in 20 minutes in one pot? I'm actually really proud of Jason for how hard he worked and how much like excitement he brought to the series with that amazing bet. To go first, second, first was like amazing. I thought it was awesome. I was really upset that people were characterizing him as being, out of integrity or anything like that. And I'm right. And I'm friendly with Vanessa. We're like, I'm going to be at her charity event this year. But I thought that, a lot of the discussion around that was really unfortunate because Jason is one of the most honorable straight shooters I know. And to see some people say what he did was scummy or anything is completely out of line and uncalled for.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I thought Vanessa. I thought Vanessa came off looking worse than that one, sort of saying the playing the I was drunk sort of defense. I thought more maybe it was just the people that I follow on Twitter or something like that. I didn't see a lot of people going after Jason at all for shooting an angle or thinking that he did anything unethical. But maybe you see different things from different people.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw some, and I agree with you. I mean, it's really simple to break down. The whole I was drunk, aside from that just being not really valuable in terms of an excuse, she made the same bet with Dimitri, right? Mm-hmm. Was drunk, took a few days, I'm assuming, of non-drinking to think about this. Then I was at the PokerStars party when it was just like a dinner, made the bet again, being sober in between. So it's not like
just made the bet, negotiated the bet. Like they were trying to find a number that was right. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I'll give you the bet too. It was, no, you're better, 180 to 1 kind of thing. Like it was negotiated.
Like, if you had a girlfriend or you're with somebody and they were really drunk one night and they made out with somebody and it was really stupid and they really were apologetic for it, maybe you can forgive that and be like, okay, it was a drunken night. But if they did it again the next Friday night with the same person, you might be like, nah, I don't know about this. It seems like a pattern. Right.
You mentioned the first, second, first run that Jason had in 3 events. Amazing run. There's a certain member of the high stakes online community that had him tagged as a bad reg. We can't really write off first, second, first as a fish on a heater, can we? I mean, that's a pretty impressive feat.
Well, there's no question. Like there's a lack of understanding of what the differences are between playing heads up online no limit hold'em or heads up anything, and playing in multi-game tournaments against some of the best players in the world in a cash game, in a live scenario. And Jason is clearly and has proven to be over time one of the best in the world at it. And to go after him, it's just odd. It's kind of very Donald Trumpian to just like attack babies and puppies and kind of like Jason is one of the most well-liked person, and sort of to go out of your way to kind of attack him was odd to me, but not really as odd as you would think with normal people, because it's kind of the MO. It has been for Doug, kind of to sort of take that line and that approach to kind of elevate his own brand or to try to get more notoriety. It's like to poke the bear and try to, create headlines, much like Trump would. And I don't really partake. He's taken a few shots at me, and I just don't see the value in, I'm not 22 anymore. Like, maybe if I was 22, I'd go to war with him. But at this point, I just kind of write it off as like, okay, I'm sure he's a nice enough kid. He's just clearly insecure. And, it's important for him to beat his chest and let everyone know that he's the best heads-up no-limit player in the world.
You were a past member of the Players Advisory Committee at the World Series of Poker. What would you tell? I mean, we saw the 11 o'clock start times. First, your reaction on that, and then what else would you what would you suggest to the World Series of Poker on how this year went and maybe how it can be improved?
Well, I'm a later sleeper. I personally prefer 12, right? But I don't care that much, because the truth is it's not going to affect most grinders really, because you're there every day. You're grinding at the same time. You just make, you adjust your schedule. If they started tournaments at 6 a.m., I can make it work because I'll just my sleep schedule. And the reason they did it was they felt like a lot of recreational players, and I know this to be true, and I've spoken to a lot of them. They show up at 11. They're more early. They're earlier risers. They want to get out at a reasonable hour. And 1 a.m. or noon, midnight is a lot different than 2 a.m. or 3:30. So from that perspective, I think it works out fine. And if you don't want to show up at 11, that's fine. You can late reg. The first level is not all. It's not a must play. So like I said, the start times, I said you should leave them the same. That was my suggestion to them. But there was enough people internally that wanted to change. So I don't think it's a big deal. And anyone we're not slaves, as Joe McGee. When they're like, we're slaves to oh my God, they're treating us like slaves by making us wake up at 10. It's just silly.
Well, the slaves are gonna get to play poker for a living. It's like the dream job for 98% of the world to do what we get to do and that kind of thing too. It's you bring up an interesting point though, and it's something I never heard talked about when we talked about the earlier start times. You said if it were 6 a.m. you'd be fine. You just adjust, and you think about it. When you go to Europe and play poker, your schedule is way off, and it takes you a while to get there because you've just flown from whatever the West Coast to Berlin or something like that, and you go and play poker. And people don't complain about that because it's sort of the understanding that well, I'm flying across the world. But like you say, the World Series is 7 weeks long. People can just sort of adjust to it, but the casual players are the ones who can't adjust because they're used to going to work at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever it is, and they have to go to bed at 10 a.m. That's something I never actually thought of, is that, well, yeah, the first week might be a disaster for you if you had to play super early and way earlier than your normal schedule, but it actually becomes less of a deal as the series goes on, and that's something I never thought of before. That's really insightful.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because it echoes kind of my life philosophy in that, there's two ways to live your life. One is you can be victim to circumstance and complain about how things are being done to you. Or two, you can stand responsible, 100% responsible for how you react to events, people, places, and things. So, okay, it's an 11 a.m. start. How will I prepare? How will I make sure that I'm best suited, rather than, oh my God, I'm so screwed because I like to get up at 9 and go work out then, and there's nothing I can do about it, and it's all their fault. There's no value in living your life that way. And it's true of even poker results. There's no value in talking about a hand that was a bad beat story. Oh, I had aces, the guy had kings, we got it on. What's the value of this story? Tell me about a hand that's interesting where, what do you do in the spot? That there's value in learning how to play better, but not much value in whining, essentially, about circumstance.
Anything else? So, did you like the schedule? Any other things that you would suggest to the World Series of Poker to change?
I like the fast structure this year. What did you think about the somewhat faster structures?
Well, that was, I definitely spoke to Jack about the structure change, and it was kind of something that I provoked, and I think almost unanimously, maybe 3 people didn't like it. Todd Brunson, Alan Kessler, and one other person. So I think overall, we had a really good year in terms of the changes implemented and people really liking them. There is going to be one massage I think I'm going to suggest for the 10Ks. It's very, very fast on day one, as you mentioned. We might want to what ends up happening is the bubbles in these things are taking a really long time because it's so deep. It's really, really deep. So I'm thinking about maybe the last level of the night, doubling that one. So essentially do 8 1-hour levels, then 10 2-hour levels, but start the first 2-hour level on day one, and then just play 4 of them on day 2. So moving back the play a little bit earlier because it really is pretty high at the end of day 1.
Give us a trip report of your World Series of Poker main event. I remember last year you had the dream table. I think you were the youngest guy at your table. I went on the deep run. What was it like this year? Your starting table and your event?
Very frustrating event because I had a great table again, day 1 and both day 2, and it was just one of those days where a lot of good situations were coming up. Spots where if I hit any one of 14 outs, I'm going to get paid a big amount, and I just was not connecting, missing a lot of hands, not making many hands. And the way that I play, my style of play is somewhat dependent upon making some hands, especially, when we're relatively deep. I don't do a lot of trying to, get people to fold big hands, because I think that's a mistake for the most part with recreational players, especially in a tournament like that. So I just wasn't connecting. And then I grinded my ass off, ended the day short. But finally on day 2, I got it up to like 140,000 and was really excited. But, an hour and a half later, just ended up going broke in a spot where I had to get it in. But overall, I thought I played well. I had good tables. Just like I said, one of those years where, because I find it's very difficult with my style of play to bust me within the first 2 days. I'm very likely to make it to day 3 and pass, because I don't play a lot of big pots with high risk of going broke. I'm a small baller, look for situations where I have the nuts, get paid. Very, very simple strategy that many, put in play, and it's really, really well suited to the main event. It just didn't work out this year.
Every year we're curious, and it's interesting to see who makes the final table. The November 9 this year, no different. We had a bunch of big names still live with 100 to 200 people left. I'm not sure how closely you watched it. You might have had some horses, I guess. But one of the guys who probably had a lot of horses made it to the final table as the chip leader. What was your thoughts on Cliff Josephy's run in the main event this year?
I didn't follow the hands and whatnot, but I'll tell you, it's very easy. He's a very easy guy to root for. He's always been a class act. I got to spend a little bit of time with him, I think, when we were in Cannes overseas, and had some drinks and stuff, and just really like the way he approaches, being a professional poker player, the contributions he's made. And, he's mentioned this before, kind of like taking on the father figure role for a lot of these young online grinders, and they have the utmost respect for him. He stays away from the drama for the most part. He'll stand for what he believes in when necessary, but just a really good role model for a lot of these kids in terms of, what they can look forward to in terms of how to be a professional poker player or a guy who plays poker and have a family and just be a contributing member to society. So he's going to be an easy guy for me to root for in November.
One of the things I want to ask you about, you gave a forum to Howard Lederer before the World Series of Poker on your blog to an apology of sorts to the poker community. It seemed like he was, positioning himself to come back to the World Series of Poker this year, and that's what happened. Chris Ferguson did similar, but he came back but didn't have the apology. First, I want to ask you about you're giving a forum to Howard. What was the discussion like with Howard? Obviously, you guys have been, at each other for a few years and had differences of opinion. Was that a difficult thing to allow him to do?
No, even before these guys were thinking about coming back, I wrote a blog a while ago about who should and shouldn't be barred from the World Series. And Russ Hamilton was one, Mansour Montloube, who I think absolutely should, because they actually cheated at poker. Howard and Chris, I said, as much as I was not a fan of what they did, they should be barred from playing, because, there's a lot of people in that room that if you went over and say well, they screwed people out of money, we'd have 7 people in these tournaments. Right? But as far as Howard goes, I'll share this with people because they're probably not aware, but privately I met with him. He actually came to my house quite a while ago. And, that's a big step for him to do, considering all the things that I'd said about him. And we hashed it out for about 2 hours. About what happened, about his role, and him really sort of acknowledging, and I saw him humble himself. I saw him, consciously say that, yeah, my ego did get out of control. My head got to me. Because I asked him one specific question. I said, Howard, were you surprised by the reaction to your Poker News video and your where you guys had him on your show? And he said, yeah, he was really surprised. And I said to him, Howard, it wasn't the content of what you said that put people off. It's how you were being about it. And how, it was the deflection of blame, the not taking ownership, the not realization of just saying, let me just stand responsible for my role. People looked to me, they trusted in me, and I failed them. That's more important than the details of who sent money to where and how that's all just a distraction from the bottom line truth. If you want to really get a genuine apology for people, and I believe America is a place of forgiveness, right? You have to humble yourself. So, I don't know, 1.5, 2 years later, he talked to me about wanting to come back to the World Series of Poker. He went to Ty, he went to Jack, and asked them their thoughts on it. And I feel like he took the proper steps towards, getting himself back in. He asked if I would host his blog, not as an endorsement of him, but simply just host it so that, a lot of eyeballs would got on it, and I felt fine with it. Now,
what do you think? Sorry, real quick before you get there, what was Howard's motivation, and if you know it, Chris's, is it just a love of the game, a competitiveness, money? Like, why did Howard want to return to a place where he knew he wouldn't be welcome?
Well, no, Howard loves poker. I listened to your show when Danielle Moon was talking about, like, why are you here? And the truth is, poker's been a big part of Howard's life for a long time, and he just wants to live a normal life and not obviously have eggs thrown at him. But I told him, I gave him advice. I said, like, if you sit at the table and people shit on you, you just have to take it. They have every right to. And all you can stand on saying is, like, I'm really sorry about what happened. I'm sorry about my role in it, and that's really all he can do at this point. Now, Chris Ferguson's a totally different story. I was really upset by this and really bothered by it because it's a real middle finger fuck you to everybody to just kind of show up and be like, hey guys, how's it going? No, not hey guys, how's it going? Right? Yeah. You hid for 5 years. You hid under the covers. You gave no statements. You put no effort towards getting these players' money back. Had it not been for PokerStars and frankly Howard's efforts to try to find a buyer and the rest of the group, people would still be out of that money. There's a very good likelihood, and he would have had he would have done nothing to sort of help move that forward. To not make any statement whatsoever, not show any remorse, I feel like is a real bad slap in the face. I happened to run into Chris in the back hallways at the Rio. As you know, we go those back routes, and he just like walked by me and was like, hey Daniel, how's it going? And I'm like, whoa. I was like, whoa, hold on. Before you get to, hey Dan, how's it going? I explained to him why. I said, are you aware of why people have a problem with the way in which you come back here? And he was very almost like groveling him, not groveling, but very humbled by it. And said he had this statement that it was his PR team told him not to say anything. And I'm thinking to myself, well, do you think that's worked? Do you think that that's won you any sort of support in the poker community? Because from what I've been seeing, quite the opposite has been true. And I said to him, frankly, I said, whether you're guilty or not, whether you had a role or not, your silence is damning. You need to say something, in terms of, at the very least, Chris, I said, at the very least, if you're not guilty of the fall of Full Tilt Poker, you're guilty of one thing. People trusted in you, your brand, to put their money into your site, and it failed. So being apologetic for that, not telling people, well, did you get your money? You got your money? Well, that's good. That's not the way to be about something like this. He hasn't humbled himself in my eyes in such a way to really warrant the acceptance of the poker community. And I mean, people can make their own personal decisions, but for me, for me, if you want forgiveness, you kind of have to ask for it. And he hasn't.
What was his response when you said these things to him?
He said he heard me. He's like, yeah, I know. I thought about that. My PR team said that, I shouldn't say anything, but maybe I will in the future.
That's it.
And the thing is, he hasn't even explained what his position was. Like, we really don't know. Howard came out. He answered some questions. We didn't like the answers, but he answered the questions when it happened. Chris has never done that. Chris has never explained, why he did what he did, why the board did what they did, and then for him to come back. And it's funny, Daniel, when you say, Howard, did you realize what was, going to happen when you came back? These guys don't. Like, imagine if one of the guys would have made or would have won a bracelet. I mean, they played 10Ks, which is kind of a slap in the face too, because, oh yeah, these guys have all their full tilt money left. They're just playing the 10Ks going after bracelets. Well, what happens if they win one of those bracelets? It would be a disaster. I mean, can you imagine
like, at the very least, Howard put his feet to the fire. He answered the questions. We might not like the answers, but he put his feet to the fire. He released it. He's done things to try to make amends. You don't ever have to accept it. You could for the rest of your life not, but I have respect for people who will at least speak up. I have no respect for people to do that stay mum on something and don't make a case for themselves or don't apologize or don't make any effort. I do think it matters. For maybe not for everyone. Who cares if he apologizes? Doesn't change anything. Well, you know what? To me, it shows an acknowledgement and an awareness of I did something that hurt the poker community, and I'm sorry. I want to hear it. I do want to hear it from Chris, and I haven't heard it at all.
Yeah, I hope we do. And if he did mention to you that he might come out and say something, I hope he does that fairly soon, because it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say. I want to ask you about the Bellagio game. You've been tweeting and talking about the game that's going on at the Bellagio, 1,500, 3,000, I believe, mixed. And one of the interesting things I thought was that Gus Hansen's back. And I don't know if he's been gone, but he's certainly been gone from online poker. His losses are well documented. He had a bad run for the last little while, but he's playing live poker again.
Yeah, he came back to Bellagio a couple weeks ago. Hasn't played poker, he told us, in a year and a half, maybe 2. And, he's a grinder that will play for long periods of time. So the poker economy in the high-stakes games is better than I've ever seen it. It's weeks after the World Series, and typically that means the games dry up. But we're seeing the games not break. They're going around the clock. We've got the day crew, and then you've got the nighttime crew, a kid like Aaron Katz, who likes to play overnight, and a lot of people who do. So the games, and Gus will play through the night. So the games aren't breaking. And typically what's happening a lot of the time is it's 15-3, and then, late night, because there's a couple people that don't want to kick it up. And it's a good limit because it keeps a player base of like 40 to 50 people maybe. Whereas when we go to 2,000 and 4,000, that eliminates some people. So, but after midnight, the crew gets down about 6-handed, and we kick it up some of the time and play a little higher. But it's been great to see sort of a revival of, mixed games. And it's good to see that they'll last and that they'll be, that this is going to be the future of high-stakes poker. Because, heads up, no limit hold'em is much like limit hold'em. That's dying. Like, if you're one of those guys, you're a dinosaur in the old sense of guys who just played stud. If you're just a stud player, good luck finding a game over in the West Coast. And if you're a heads up, no limit player, you better learn to do new things.
One of the people I saw that was playing in the game, still playing at his age, is Doyle Brunson. I wanted to get your take on the strengths and weaknesses of Doyle's game. You played for years with the guy. Is he still as sharp as he was early in his career? And, maybe give us a breakdown of his game.
Well, Doyle is a testament to, experience, wisdom, and he just knows how to win, okay? This sounds very abstract. Like, what does that even mean? He knows how to win. Because the game is a strategy-based game, so you either play well or you don't. He just has a knack for finding good spots. He, of course, like weakness-wise, like there are times he literally will play the wrong game. He's in his 80s, so we might be playing, deuce to 7 Raz, and he's playing ace to 5 Raz and has an ace in his hand, and is like, fuck, I was playing the wrong game. Says that happens like at least 3 times a day for him, right? But he plays well enough, and he plays all the games well, and we have a really wide mix of games. Some obscure games. Deuce to 7 Raz is probably, he might be the best Deuce to 7 Raz player in the game, arguably. So he makes sure that the mix of games benefits him. And he's just good. What more can you say?
Do you see yourself?
Is he good at playing the wrong game? Can you be good at playing the wrong game? If you got an ace in your hand, then realize it's deuce to 7. Now what?
Well, if it's an ace in the hole,
that's clearly going to hurt your EV and your hourly. But like I said, he does enough of the other things right, where he just knows how to win. He knows mentally how to prepare, and it's less about strategy and less about like playing. He knows mentally what he's capable of. He's very self-aware of when he knows when to quit, which is most important. When he's starting to fade, and he doesn't play past 8 p.m. usually.
When you're looking at your own poker career, is Doyle somewhat like, do you see yourself being Doyle, 20, 30 years from now? Like, do you love poker as much as he still does in his age? And do you think that you would expect to love poker at Doyle's age?
That's one of the things I respect and admire about Doyle is the fact that he's in his 80s and he's still playing the highest stakes games in the world against the young geniuses who run simulations that I'm sure he's never run, yet he still ends the day a winner. As far as his love for poker, he plays every single day. It's what he really loves. He loves to go to the Bellagio, watch the sports, betting on the baseball games, shooting the shit with the guys, making fun of Ivy. We talk a little politics at the table. He likes to get involved in that. And he just loves it so much. As for me, I have a wider scope of interest in terms of what I like to do with my days. So I don't ever see myself being like a day-to-day player. But I think that I'll be playing forever, especially the World Series of Poker. Cash games, occasionally. It's fun. It was really, really fun to play this week because it was such a throwback game. On my left, I got Phil Ivey playing props with Patrick Antonius and Doyle Brunson on the other side playing 3-way props. They're needling each other just like they did in the old days. You got Jennifer across from me, David Oppenheim. It's like a throwback game, and it was really fun because there's a lot of people that I grew up for the last 20 years playing these games with.
What are you doing with your days these days? Are you golfing? I know you went through a period, or remember back when there was a lot of big games in the golf course. What's a typical day like?
Well, lately I haven't been golfing for last year because I had first a wrist injury, shoulder, and then I sprained my ankle. It's like every time I'm ready to go out, some nagging injury. I have been playing soccer, not the last 2 weeks because I sprained my ankle, but I'm feeling better. I go to the gym, 4 days a week. I've been very involved. I play Hearthstone a lot. I really enjoy the game. And outside of that, I do a lot of reading. I read a lot. I'm very, very politically interested in what's going on in America, and I live here, and I'll be voting. And I read a lot. I mean, a lot of people ingest their information from either watching Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC, and I feel like, and I do this sometimes with people to show them, when people don't understand, why do people hate Hillary so much? Why do they love Trump so much? And I go, here you go. Let's watch Hannity 3 days in a row on Fox News, and you'll understand where that comes from. Because whatever news outlet, cable news outlet you're digesting your information from, it's going to shape your views strongly. So I take it in with a grain of salt, but I like to do a lot more reading and research on the political landscape, the good, the bad, and the ugly of Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, the alternative options, because I find it fascinating. I think this time in the country's history, I don't know that there's been a more important election in terms of the direction of the country and where we're headed. So I spend probably way too much time, and I lose a lot of followers on Twitter, and I'm okay with that. I've always lived my life in such a way where I take a stand, and I let people know that, if you don't like it, that's okay. The unfollow button is on the top right, and you're free to click it. I don't get upset when people click it. If politics is boring to you, then my feed of late is probably not going to be something you're interested in.
Yeah. You're talking about politics. There was one tweet I wanted to ask you about. And it was a tweet to Mike Matissa, who made a joke, I guess, to Eric Seidel about taking drugs, and you went at him pretty harshly there. Was Mike upset about that? Do you regret that tweet?
Oh yeah, so that whole thing, and I kind of left it alone. Mike has been very vocally supporting Trump, as we all know, and he went after Eric Seidel, who doesn't really get it in with, he doesn't get in beefs with anybody, and he sort of went after him, saying, "I thought you didn't do drugs," mocking him. So my tweet was very strongly worded, and I said, says the guy whose brain is fried from years of drug use and still takes buckets of pills, right? Now, this is something that Mike jokes about all the time, at the table in a way. Maybe Twitter is an environment where people don't realize that, and they're less aware of the fact that he mocks himself. He wrote in his own book about how much his brain is fried from the years of that. So for me, it's a very diggy, it's a very deep sense of humor, or maybe crossing the line, maybe close to it, but I don't really take it back. I don't really necessarily regret it, because so for lack of a better term, I'll use Trump's response. He started it, right? By going after Eric, which is a very childish thing to say. But Mike and we're not friends. I don't have any friends that are actively supporting Trump. I have friends that I know some people that are voting for Trump because they hate Hillary more, and I can accept that. A lot of people that are voting for Gary Johnson, totally respect that. But people that are supporting the rhetoric that Trump is spreading and actually actively encouraging it, inciting it, I can't be friends with that. One of his tweets the other day was so repulsive to me. He tweeted something about a grandfather who molested the 2-year-old, and then the mother killed the baby to fix it, and they were Muslim, right? So he retweeted something to say that, to all the never Trump people, this is what's coming if Hillary gets elected, right? And it's so xenophobic and so racist, but he's so unaware of it that I found it so offensive and repulsive that I don't even have conversations with him. There's not a lot of value. It's like beating your head against the wall. So I basically look at him like a lost cause at this point.
So that's a deal breaker for you? If you had a buddy and before this election, you guys have been friends for a long time, and he's like, no, I'm going to vote for Trump. That's a deal breaker in your friendship?
It depends. So if they're voting for Trump because they hate Hillary more, as I said, and they really are disgusted by her corruption that is legit, they're not really a fan of Trump, we can get along fine. I've got a lot of Republican friends who are not supporting Trump that I really enjoy having dinners with them, discussing policy, discussing politics. Paul Ryan, John McCain, Mitt Romney. I may not have agreed with them politically, but I respect them as human beings. This isn't about politics. This is about an ideology and a dangerous game that Trump is playing by stoking the flames. And this is bigger than politics. So I can't get past that support. I can't get past somebody being like, yeah, Trump, get the beaners back to Mexico, build a wall. Like I just can't. I can't imagine that we're going to have a lot in common, me and somebody like that. So in my inner circle, or I have acquaintances who I know are probably going to vote for him, but none of my friends or the people in my world or my life would ever consider voting for him.
Could you see yourself running for office one day? I don't know if it's possible. You're a dual citizen, right?
Not really, because I don't really want a day job, But I certainly, I've been asked to be on some boards for some charitable organizations and different things like that raising awareness for different things I'm all about. But in terms of like actually running for a position, maybe in 20 years from now when I'm in my 60s and I'm old, that might be something that I may consider, because I've had a lot of people actually ask me to. But at this point, that's not something. I don't have any political aspirations whatsoever.
The stuff that they would pull off the internet from when you were in your 20s would be pretty, like the guy campaigning against you would have a lot of ammunition, I'm just going to say.
Oh, I know. But, look, politics has changed so much that it's almost like none of that matters. Because if you just look at the news cycle, like in a 3-day span, like Trump will tell a baby to get the fuck out, mock his own party. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was the other thing he did? Disavow his own party, mock firefighters, mock people with Purple Hearts. Like, just it's like it doesn't even matter anymore.
I wanted to ask you about the big one for One Drop that's going to happen. Guy now saying that it's for casual players only, recreational players, no pros. Your thoughts on that? And also, I think he said, correct me if I'm wrong, for the cash games as well, that it's going to be recreational players only that are circling around the event.
Okay, so if we look at this from a bigger picture perspective, right? He wants to run a tournament amongst his friends. Who gives a shit? He's allowed to do that. We have no inherent right as professionals to say, hey, you must allow us to play in this event. Why? Based on what, right? The One Drop was something that was a bracelet event. It won't be anymore. If it's a bracelet event, I could see like a major beef, because that's absurd to just say like, oh, only these 8 people can win this bracelet. That would be really, really silly from a statistical perspective and a historical perspective. But these guys wanted to get together and playing a tournament amongst themselves for a good cause. It's going to raise $4 to $5 million for charity. Any pros that are whining about not, being shut out, or who gets to play and who doesn't, and the politics behind that, it's just a tournament. It's a charitable event. Like, do I think it means anything, the event? Like the winner, like, is there sort of some historical significance? No, it's just a charity event. We have charity events all the time. Tiger Woods has one, that's for charity, and somebody wins that. I don't know. It's lost its luster for sure in terms of it being like an event that people look to and go, wow, the One Drop. Now it's just kind of a charity event that's for a bunch of millionaires put their money together. And if they choose to not want to have to play against pros and give up bigger equity than they already are while they're donating money to charity, who's to say they shouldn't, right?
Agreed, yeah. Last year we had you on the show, Daniel. We were talking about PokerStars, the Supernova Elite situation, and you were mentioning that, you've been in talks with a lot of the people high up at Stars about the marketing money that they're going to be spending this year. So I wanted to ask you, have those things that you were excited about for 2016, have they been rolled out? Are they going to come out in the second half of 2016, or are they already out?
No, there was probably, I want to say like 3 really big things, and then maybe like 4 to 5 other things. There have been some things that were outside of what I was talking about that I've rolled out that I like. For example, like the spin and go qualifiers being parts of the main events and really upping the numbers there and adding a lot of value to like EPT main events. But in terms of the bigger picture things that I was hoping would happen in 2016, we've had some curveballs thrown to us with David Bazov stepping away and no longer being CEO of the company for the time being. And a lot of the vision for some of these ideas, came from him. So I don't expect that, by the end of this year, we're going to see any of the exciting things that I've hoped for. Outside of that, there were some things. Well, there was one specific thing that I was really hopeful for that is kind of outside of our control in terms of, it being pushed forward. But I do think that there's some hope for the next year or two that we'll see some of the things that I was excited about roll out. Having said that, no, clearly the things that I was super stoked about and said I was excited about for the players that they would all go mind blown over. That hasn't happened, and I don't think that it will by the end of 2016. And one or two of the things may never happen. So that's unfortunate, and I was really, really hopeful that would happen, but it just didn't seem to fall the way that we would have liked. And as I said, obviously with Bazov stepping away, a lot's changed in terms of that vision.
Does that result in any sort of disillusionment for you as sort of the face of PokerStars? I mean, you're a straight shooter, but I expect you to say that you're still happy representing PokerStars. But I mean, does the lack of delivery on this kind of stuff, whether it's Stars' fault or external forces, does that disillusion you to any extent?
Well, to be honest with you, at this point, I'm more concerned and more worried about red flags of a repeat of what happened late December with the changes to the VIP program. Like, I'm more worried about stopping the bleeding in terms of things getting worse, right? So that's more my major concern. Obviously, like, these promotions and some of these ideas, I'd love to see them come forward. But whether they happen or not, like, as long as we right the ship and don't continue to go down a path of, like, sort of misleading players with a promotion or not delivering on promises and things like that, like, that's objective number one, right? So I'm much more internally involved with making sure that any changes, like, I'm getting more phone calls about, like, we're thinking about doing this. What do you think? And how will this affect players and blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot more internally. There's a lot more thought and care about not screwing this up again, because they are very aware of how big of a hit this took from a PR perspective, from an integrity perspective, from a trust perspective. The wheels were in motion and it was too late to change it as much as I would have liked to. But avoiding another disaster is priority number one for me, because what's happening within the company and the growth, and I think that people will see that when the second quarter numbers are revealed. All the things that they would hope happen are happening exactly as they visioned. They're outperforming what they were hoping for in terms of some of the key areas they wanted to address. Obviously, profit margin is one of those things, and the verticals of casino and sportsbook have really helped the bottom line. And as of right now, the company's a publicly traded company. So those things matter for the future of, the company as a whole, and ultimately for the players who play at PokerStars who enjoy playing there. So like I said, mostly at this point, I've kind of put aside the hopes of, the promotions that will benefit, and just notice that, okay, the ship's been righted. I feel like it's been enough time. People have been pissed. They have every right to be pissed about what happened, but things have come to sort of a calm, it seems like. And as of now, there's been no kind of like, oh my God, what the hell are we doing? This can't happen. So avoiding that, again, is priority number one.
Do you have any fears, Daniel, with those, those new verticals you're talking about, casino, sportsbook, adding to the bottom line, doing quite well, sort of mining the database, so to speak, of PokerStars, and with the people that are in power now at PokerStars, are you afraid that the focus that this is a poker site is going to be lost at some point, or are you confident enough in the people there that poker will always be something that they're they want to offer and spend a lot of time and money on?
Yeah, no, we're definitely not seeing that we're not seeing a big shift from, poker players going into casino and sportsbook and a lot of the revenue going from there to there. What we are seeing, definitely, and this is something that I'm actually for, is spin and goes are, very, very popular, right? And a lot of players that may have in the past sat in a 1 and 2 6 max no limit game that are going to get fleeced and literally never win. Like, you take a recreational player, give him $100 to play 1-2, or like $500 to play 1-2, have him play 3-hour sessions for a week. The way things work, he's probably not going to win one session. Literally, he probably won't win once. So he becomes disillusioned, says, I hate this. It's not fun. Everyone plays really tight. I quit. Spin and goes are geared towards specifically this type of player. The rake, it's reasonable, in those things. Obviously, it's not something that's very lucrative for pros, which is a benefit to these kind of guys. They have fun. And the bottom line is they lose less per hour. They lose less. They win more often. That keeps them engaged. Some of those people that start to enjoy the spin and goes will veer off into the tournaments. They'll play the Sunday Millions. They'll start to get involved in playing the cash games if they're softened. But the biggest issue we were facing was new players that were coming onto the site were basically lambs to the slaughter. We're taking them, we're throwing them to the pros. They're getting destroyed at record pace. they're not enjoying their experience, and they're writing it off for good. We're seeing a big shift in that, and spin and goes plays a huge role in that. And I get why a lot of pros don't like spin and goes because, it's not exactly a stable way for them to make money. But the ecosystem, and this is why I hate using that word because people hate it when you do. But in terms of like a balance, the goal isn't necessarily to do what's best to make it as easy as possible for pros to fleece these amateurs. They're the majority. The majority is the recreational player. We need to spend more time focusing on like, how can we make sure those guys are having fun? How can we make sure those guys that read deposit and that they continue to play? And the shift we've taken we see evidence and statistics that it is working.
I agree with you 100% that the recreational player is very much a lamb to the slaughter. A guy depositing 200 and sitting down in a cash game is going to lose like 95% of the time. But the logical conclusion that you might get from that, so if you were looking at this from the Amaya perspective, is why even have cash games at all if all they're doing is kind of fleecing the bad players? Why don't we just move to a entirely spin and go, an entirely MTT sort of situation, and just say, well, cash games, they're crushing these guys. We've already seen it with gradually reducing higher stakes games and benefits for higher stakes games. Are cash games like what? Is it possible that someday down the road the cash games don't even exist?
I don't know, obviously, but like if you think of, I don't, like we've already seen to some degree, and a lot of people are upset about this, heads up games being taken off the site because heads up games were, as you're mentioning, kind of like a breeding ground for 30 guys waiting for the one sucker to get fleeced really, really quickly. So those games kind of on their own were very, very predatory. We haven't seen that trickle down to microsave cash games at this point, and there are enough people, recreational player-wise, who really enjoy playing cash games. So I don't think there's been any need to say, okay, we're going to get rid of them because they do bring in revenue. And the shift has happened in terms of the balance of, the rate in which they're losing has slowed, somewhat. So I don't think there's any sort of like panic of like, let's get rid of cash games and put people on spin and goes because we have spin and goes now and people can make the choices for themselves. And I think you want to be careful about limiting people to just a lottery style format and tournaments. Like people want to play cash. So, as long as it's not set up in such a way like the heads up tables were, where, there was that predatory kind of lamb to the slaughter type situation, I don't see any reason why you'd want to eliminate them. But I'm not saying you can rule anything out. Who knows what cash games will look like in 2 years? We're already seeing, and this was before Amaya took over, before anything, high stakes games and the number of high stakes games declining. And that's inevitable, right? Like eventually, these guys are too good. And the high stakes players are like, a random guy's not going to walk in there and just keep donating millions of dollars. You're not going to get a Guy Liberté who's going to fund the poker community for forever. They dry up. That's just the nature of high stakes games.
Yeah, and the markets around the world that are shutting off, due to government legislation also doesn't help at all. The Kid Poker documentary out on Netflix now. What's the reaction been? It's been out for a while. Overwhelmingly positive. Like, I wasn't even sure what they were making when they were making this. I didn't even realize they talked to my brother. And the film, what it was really, the overwhelming response is that people who don't play poker, or people that watch it with their wives who are like, I hate poker. They're liking it. They're enjoying it because it's a story about family, perseverance, determination, and drive. And the poker community's received it really, really well. I was really surprised to see how one-sided it is in terms of people really loving it. Very little negative flack. And I mean, you're going to get some because just some people like live to hate, but it's very difficult to watch it. I mean, it's very difficult to watch what the content of that documentary is about and be like, that was bullshit. I hated it. If you do, man, you might want to look into like some meditation and like loving yourself a bit and like, don't blacken your soul so much. One takeaway for me was the family aspect. I myself have kids, so that keeps me busy. Can you ever see yourself as a father?
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a friend over. The other day she left her 6-year-old with me for the afternoon, and I'm like, my God, this will cure you. 3 hours with a 7-year-old will cure you.
Who leaves a kid with a professional poker player?
I have a fun house. Kids love coming to my house. I mean, they do. There's all kinds of games. I have games. I have the backyard with the golf green. I have the golf simulator upstairs. I have a dart game. I have arcades. I've got like all kinds of cool furniture that's like a Pee-wee's Playhouse. Kids have a blast at my house. having said that, me personally, when I was young, probably when I was in my 20s or 30s, I thought I was definitely going to have children, and that was going to be a big part of my life. And a lot of people say, "Oh, children will change your life," and part of that is like, yeah, but I love my life, right? I kind of love it. So at this point in my life, I don't see it. I don't rule anything out, but I have no plans. I've always been under the belief that if I get married and have children, I'll be happy. If I get married and don't have children, I'll be absolutely happy. If I don't get married and don't have children, guess what? I'm still going to be happy. So, so like I said, I don't rule anything out, but it's not part of a vision for my life that I have right now.
I was watching your Periscope the other day, and coincidentally also had your house, and it looked like a fun place to be. But you mentioned there might be a podcast down the road. Is there a Daniel Negreanu podcast coming?
Yeah. I'm working on something. I've actually got something, and this is just all for me. Nobody's backing this. There's no PokerStars, Poker Central affiliation. It's mostly just something that I really want to do to contribute to the poker community. It's something that, because I've actually I started listening to your guys' cast. I listened to a bunch of the other ones, and I'm really enjoying the medium. And the platform's really great, especially like, Terrence mentioned, he listens to the short ones when he's doing something short. Then if he's going to go work out for a couple hours, you can listen to some of the longer ones. And, I think I'm going to add something that's maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And I'm going to offer something that I have a unique access to, that I think poker, especially the poker professional world, will really enjoy. And, part of that will be talking to some of the more influential, powerful people in the industry that have a say, and getting some feedback from them, and kind of going over interviews with them. Like, my first guest on the show will be Brian Balsbog. I've already got that. And the first episode when I finally finish it, will be the state of poker sponsorship for pros today, because I think it's a topic that really relates to a lot of these people. Like, is there value? What value is there? Let's get realistic. What were things like in the past? And that's kind of the avenue I want to take. I want to touch on different areas, like, Alex Dreyfus, the GPL, Jason Somerville, and his Twitch streams, and really kind of look at where things at. Also, Jack Effel, Ty Stewart, Adam Pliska. These are the types of people that I like to interview and take on a different role. Because, when I'm doing this interview with you guys, I'm the one doing all the talking, right? I actually enjoy doing a lot of I enjoy asking the questions. So I'm going to give it a shot, and hopefully people enjoy it, and I think they'll get a lot of value from it.
Awesome. When should we expect the first one?
Couple weeks. Yeah, like 2 weeks from now, maybe. Throw one out there. Just working on some of the, I'm not like, I don't know how to do music and blah, 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 and all the cool bells and whistles. I should probably hire Ross, right?
I know a guy. I was just going to say I know a guy. He's busy right now, though. I'm claiming him. No,
it's less about the glitz and glamour. Why am I doing it? I'm not doing it. I don't plan on selling sponsorships. I don't need anyone to advertise. I'm doing it because I enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I really like it.
All right, let's get to the real reason we brought you on the show, Daniel. Let's talk hockey. Las Vegas awarded an expansion team. I can feel everybody clicking the fast forward button, but who cares? Great news, right, for Vegas. Us in Canada, and yourself, I'm sure, too, might understand the reservations of bringing a team to a city where, we're not 100% sure of success, where, like, for sure there would be success for a second team in Toronto or Quebec City. We've decided on Las Vegas. Pretty excited?
Oh my God. I went to the arena the other day just to try to pick my seats, and I sat in these chairs, and it's like, you ever been in a Lazy Boy? The chairs are incredible. The arena is state of the art. Vegas, this is no half-assed effort. It's really beautiful. The area is great. I walked around the neighborhood or just the area, and there's like this really cool bar next to it where they've got like shuffleboard, Jenga, ping pong. So, like a lot of it's just a great community atmosphere. I'm very stoked about it. As you know, I live here, and I do believe we are looking at something that's not only successful for the franchise, but for the city, for bringing in tourism. I don't believe, think about it, right? If the Canucks are playing in Vegas on a Sunday afternoon, isn't that a little more incentive to say, you know what, let's come out, let's go for the weekend, go to Vegas, play some poker, and then, catch the game on Sunday. I believe there's going to be a lot of that, and it's going to create a fun atmosphere within the arena, almost like a playoff game where you got, maybe 20% of the people are rooting for the opposing team. But I think it's going to be successful. I know the owner very well at this point. I really like him. He's got a good vision and they hired an amazing GM. So I think we're going to be successful. I really do.
Is there any part of you, though, that can kind of take one step back? Because you're really close to the situation. You know the owner, you're in the city, you love the game, but can you step back and go, wait a second, can this work?
Oh, my God, absolutely. There are plenty of red flags, right? First and foremost, Vegas is a nighttime town where a lot of people work nights. It's not like a regular city where people work during the day, then they can go to the game at 7:30 p.m., right? If you had a game on a Friday night, man, most of the city's working. So who the hell's going to go to the games, right?
Yeah.
So we have to be very creative in when we have them. And I know that we're looking at Sunday afternoons and Tuesday evenings, right? The second biggest danger is there's talk of NFL coming. Then if hockey's successful, there's talk of NBA coming. Well, what if in 3-4 years, we're not winning, the product isn't as, exciting for people, and basketball comes and football comes, and now we have to compete with them for a ticket. Those are all dangers, right? Legitimate risks. But I being the first in, I think there's some added value in that in terms of if you compare San Jose to other cities. San Jose is a hockey town. They didn't know anything about hockey before hockey got there, but It's a one-sport town, so they're there. So I definitely see risk. It might just not take, Obviously, I think the first year people are really going to go and really love it. And the question is, will people fall in love with it here? And I do think that they will.
If you could pick a job with the team, the owner, if you could pick a dream job that you could do, not just I might be able to do, but you could do, what would it be?
I think this is so funny because I was just trying to think about Daniel's Twitter timeline and any comments he's made about the Leafs or any other team and their decisions, and I was just thinking he's going to be armchair GM all over this team, or at least I hope he is, and this is going to be so fun.
Oh, totally. Yeah, actually, I know some of the people involved in the analytics and stuff like that. If I could pick a role for myself, it would be vision, long-term vision, some I don't know how you would describe the role, but making sure we're staying on course, where we're not panicking. Because I've been a Leaf fan for a long time, so I know the mistakes they make. So not repeating them. Whereas the team's getting to the point where it's mediocre, where you just mortgage the future and go, let's get Phil Kessel, right? No, patience. Wait till we're actually decent. So really building the right way, making sure that the blocks are in place where we're not panicking and rushing. And there's a steady balance sometimes, though, in a city. You look at Arizona, and they don't draw very well, and they haven't been making the playoffs, they haven't been doing well. So sometimes ownership groups have the pressure of saying, well, we need to fill seats, so we need to make this team competitive, right? So I would love to be in charge of marketing how being the worst team in the league is really exciting. Because we're going to get the top draft pick, and oh my God, we're going to get even better. And then next year, we're going to get even better. And then in 4 or 5 years, we're going to be a dynasty, right?
Unless you're the Oilers.
It's amazing. How do you guys fuck that up? How do they screw that up? It's impossible to screw that up the way as bad as Edmonton has. But they're the one, because there's plenty of evidence that the right way to build is the way Pittsburgh and Chicago have.
Colorado back in the day when they were Quebec, when Quebec was the worst team in the league, and Colorado became a powerhouse for a decade.
Edmonton makes you question that the process a little bit. It's crazy.
Your buddy Phil Kessel, Stanley Cup champion with the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. Your hometown ran him out of town, kinda, and he went there and took it down. Huge piece. Did he lead the NHL in scoring in the playoffs? I think, or he was right there if he didn't.
He certainly did.
What a fantastic finish to that story.
Yeah, I really like Phil. He's got a really good heart, really good guy, very simple guy. He doesn't exactly. He's not the media darling. He doesn't have a lot to say in interviews. He's just very. He's not easy to talk to in that way. He's very uncomfortable, right? But he loved being in Toronto. He still has roots there. And, after he recently just did something, I read a piece in Toronto Star that he did, and I know he did it. He had a party there with the Stanley Cup to sort of, bring it back to Toronto. And he went to the sick kids hospital and he brought the cup around and took pictures with everybody there. He never wanted to leave Toronto, right? But the team is headed in a direction where it just didn't make sense for him to be there, and if he's going to go anywhere, and I remember talking to him when the trade rumors first happened. He was at the series. He was at the World Series, and I go, I'm hearing rumors you might go to Pittsburgh. I'm like, he's like, because he didn't want to leave Toronto. And he was like, well, I guess that wouldn't suck, with Crosby and Malkin on a power play. So I'm really happy for him. And I know that when he's 35 and maybe if he's still playing hockey and over the hill, maybe we'll get him over to the Vegas team.
I want to ask you how a guy in such good shape, because clearly you got to be in really good shape to play that much hockey, looks fat. How does he look fat?
Well, let's remember something, and this may not I don't know if people remember, but he had Hodgkin's disease and he had testicular
I didn't
cancer.
know that. Did not know
He did.
that.
So, well, he had testicular cancer, right? So part of one of the side effects of that, one of the symptoms, it bloats your face and bloats your body. Because he does look like a chunky monkey, right? And people are like, how can he be that fast and be a chunky monkey? And he really is. That was really upsetting. He came into camp last year in Toronto, his last year there. People were mocking him for being chunky. And he's like, I was so pissed about that because all of his tests, he was faster, higher percentage of muscle, lower body fat. He was actually physically stronger and faster. And yet the media was reporting that, he let himself go in the off season. So
I feel
no, don't be like, I'm glad you brought it up because a lot of people think, well, he's just, he just doesn't care. He doesn't train. He doesn't work hard. This guy in the gym, he's the beast. He's got a strong ass. I'll tell you that much.
He's got a big, strong ass.
We're gonna have to isolate that quote. Ross, are you on that one? We've got to isolate Daniel saying that one. Yeah.
He's got a strong ass.
Good.
That's the new coffee.
We got a second take.
Yeah. The name, Black Knights. Please tell me that that's not going to be the name.
It's not official, of course. He's going through a lot of issues with copyright. There's a lot of names that you'd like to go with, maybe, but there's a lot of issues in terms of how to get it. He's partial to Black Knights because he went to West Point. He likes that. His wife prefers just Knights without the black. So, it's obviously one of the leading candidates for a name. But I like Rat Pack. I don't know. I feel like it has a real good connection to the city. You could go for the kids, you can have sort of like, the rat memorabilia. And then for the people that have been around a long time, you could have Sammy Davis in the stands. You could have Elvis, like Frank Sinatra, and kind of play off the Rat Pack that's synonymous with Vegas.
It'd be like Florida. When Florida went to the Stanley Cup final, there's rats on the ice nonstop. It would be like that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Couple Twitter questions about hockey. One of them from Bluffy's Nuts. Hypothetical. Leafs in Vegas for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. What jersey you rocking?
Ooh.
Holy shit. Leafs against Vegas?
In Game 7 in Vegas. What jersey?
Wow, what jersey am I rocking? The thing is, it's obviously at this point, Toronto's my team. So if it happened this year, right, it would be Toronto because I don't have an allegiance to the Vegas team yet. But I imagine something like that wouldn't happen for 8 years from now. So in 8 years from now, I would imagine I'd be going to every game here. So I'll be a diehard Vegas fan. But I might wear both. Yeah, I just might wear a half.
Got one and a half.
I see people rock the hat and jersey combo.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good play.
Another question from Adrian Charlie. No Canadian players or no Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup final last year, even though half of the teams were made up of Canadians. But do you see any of the Canadian teams making the playoffs next year and your Stanley Cup pick for next year?
I haven't looked too closely yet at all the trades and what's been happening in terms of how that's going to affect the teams. I'll have a better pick, sometime in September. But I thought Anaheim is a well-built team. They didn't perform, but I can't imagine they're much worse. And of course, Chicago, they're always a threat to win anytime they have Kane and Tays and Seabrook and Keith put together. That's scary.
Cheap Thieves still rocking? You still doing the hockey pool?
Oh, absolutely. That's the one trip I make to Toronto. It's right before W Coop. Make the playoffs every year, my Cheap Thieves, but my team's getting a little old. I might need sort of an injection of youth because they're starting to get close to 30. I might have to do a little rebuild here at some point.
One more quick question from Twitter at China Maniac. Are you still plus EV and MTTs? And do you feel you could beat the 25-50 game now that Stars has 0 rakeback?
Well, those are two very different questions. Plus EV and MTTs versus could you beat 25-50? Those are tough. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to at least one.
So there's two questions, right? One is the first question is, am I positive EV in the MTTs that I play? And that's a real question?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I'm definitely there's definitely evidence that I'm aware of that younger players have a better understanding of some of the more intricate mathematical spots, especially playing 15 bigs or 20 bigs. They're definitely going to be better than me at that, a lot of them. But I do believe that through years of wisdom and self-awareness, I have an understanding of how I'm perceived that allows me, even in the high rollers, to open up situations for myself that I can exploit and still be positive equity, even against some of the best players in the world.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Dan, for your time. Really appreciate it. Every time you come on here, we have a great time. And good luck for the rest of 2016.
Save us some press box tickets for when the Canucks come to Vegas.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to be lame and sit in a press box.
That's true. That's true. Let's get on the blue line.
I need to know, where do we sit, man? That's the thing that I had so much anxiety because I got to pick my 4 seats. Where do I go? I'm thinking.
I think like 12 rows behind the bench. I'll
tell you what. The Mueller seats are row 1 behind the goal on the aisle. Those are the Mueller seats.
Yeah.
I sat in those seats down by the glass, and I think they're terrible just because you don't get to see the whole ice. You're kind of like one-dimensional. I think about 12 to 15 rows up, like on the blue line of the home team in the first and third period.
Right there with you. That's it.
Yeah, I think those are probably ideal for sure.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, good luck, Dan. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Terrence, always fun to sit and talk to Daniel for a while. I know some people are going to be rolling their eyes at the hockey talk, but hey, it's our show.
Yeah, and we covered a lot of ground in there. I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. We're really glad you brought up that stuff about PokerStars and you know, because a lot of times people have short memories about these things, and you know, I have to admit it wouldn't have necessarily crossed my mind, but you know, those big things that were promised and were coming. I'm glad sort of we got the take on how he feels about all that.
Oh, Terrence, I did want to mention our new sponsor. We've come to an agreement with SharkScope. They're going to be a partner, going to do lots of fun stuff with those people over the next 12 months. SharkScope and PokerCast are going to ride together for 12 months. Looking forward to that.
Awesome. Yeah, SharkScope, old school poker information, still relevant today. Find out who's crushing it in the online pokers at SharkScope.
Indeed.
It's where you can, you know, it's where you back up your shit talking.
That's right. True. Yeah. Or yeah, exactly. Don't be that guy though who goes on SharkScope when some guy puts a bad beat on you and say that's why you suck.
Don't be that SharkScope guy.
Don't be that SharkScope guy.
Yeah.
Be the positive.
You didn't even win your last 25 tournaments that I can see without opting in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So okay, as mentioned before, we're going to end this segment of the PokerCast here. There's going to be another one up tomorrow, likely, or Saturday. We're going to break that down into 3 shows. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. What do you want to do? Start again?
Yeah.
Start again.
All right.
Okay, Ross is going to hit a record button, and he's not going to stop until you say, Ross, stop recording.
Okay.